Joining us now is someone who has been living this case over in Italy and filing great reports for Seattle PI. You can check the stuff out on seattlepi.com. Andrea Vogt. Good morning, Andrea.
Good morning.
Let's break this down now. Should we be outraged this morning? Should people be outraged that this Amanda Knox was found guilty of murder?
You know, I think you can understand the outrage and the frustration and the disappointment of this family. It is a tragedy. Truly, I was in the courtroom when the verdict was read, and you could not help but feel, you know, my heart sank for this family. It's truly was a very difficult moment. But I do believe she had a fair trial. I believe that the justice system in Italy, in this case, it was a very open, everything was in open court. There was examination, there was cross-examination. Both aspects, all the different aspects of these contested points were debated before the jury, with consultants on both sides, attorneys arguing both sides.
That's the way we do it.
Criticisms of the system, I think it's misguided.
Yeah, well, that's what I want to get to the bottom, because I really don't understand the system. Let's start first with the prosecutor in this case. A lot of controversy surrounding him, and the stories that I've heard is that people, you know, he pointed the finger at Amanda Knox, and then when they found the real killer, he couldn't back down from his original accusation because it would make him look bad, and that's why he went after Amanda Knox the way he did.
Well, I disagree with that view of the prosecutor. I think he's been a professional in this case, and I disagree. There's, you know, a lot of that is stemming from the Monster of Florence case, especially because you've got this big book, The Monster of Florence by Douglas Preston and Mario Spezzi, which was a, you know, bestseller. But there are a lot of points in that book that are refutable. There are some. I've looked at the case files, and I don't think it tells the whole story. Not about the Monster of Florence and not about the prosecutor. Now, he is under investigation for an administrative matter about using state money to make a recording, and that is going to be decided on the 22nd of January. And I think that if he's convicted...
But that's unrelated to this case, or is it somehow related?
No, it's not related to this case. But if he's convicted, of course, then you have a little bit of a shadow over, you know, is this prosecutor, you know, is it fair that he's prosecuting other cases? And so I think if he's convicted on that administrative, that other allegation that he's facing, those charges he's facing, that will be then a very important matter for the appeal. But the cases are really not related. And I think that the efforts to try to link the Monster of Florence case to the Meredith Kercher case are absolutely misguided. And it just shows that there are other motives. There are people who are, you know, making money, piggybacking on this case to try to sort of, you know, become involved because it for some reason profits or benefits them. So I think that's not really a very fair representation of the prosecutor. I don't think he picked on Amanda Knox because she's American. I think he was looking at going by what the investigators were telling him and by the intercepted phone calls and by the evidence he was looking at.
So how about when we look back at this system of justice, the jury much different than jurors here? Here in a first-degree murder case, we would have 12 jurors that need to be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt, all unanimously. Anything short of that, there is no conviction. There you have 8 jurors, correct? 2 of them are actually magistrates?
That's correct.
And is it beyond a reasonable doubt? It is very different.
The biggest thing that's different is that they're not sequestered. That's a hard thing for people to get over here in the U.S. You know, they have regular jobs. There was a secretary, a school teacher, a contractor. During the week they work, and on Fridays and Saturdays they were in trial. And they're not, you know, they're allowed to watch TV and see the newspapers and all of that.
Oh, they are? Okay.
They are. They do take an oath, though, saying that they won't do that they won't talk about the case. And, you know, those sorts of...
now, are they instructed? Are they instructed to consider only the evidence that was presented in the courtroom as opposed to everything else they may know about the case?
Yes, they are instructed to do that, and they have to actually take an oath that they will promise to do that. And there are cases that have been overturned on appeal because a jury, in their explanation of their sentence, made reference to some sorts of media things that were not actually evidence in the trial. So, you know, a case can be thrown out if the jury has been found to have been in some way influenced in their decision by something that was not entered as evidence in the case.
Now, we will get from this jury a basis for their decision within 90 days. Is that how it works?
That's correct. The judge has 90 days to write up a detailed explanation of what the evidence was, why they made the decision they did.
Now, you
and
say the judge, this is the judge that's on the jury or the judge who is overseeing the case?
Well, it's one and the same in that the judge that oversees the trial, that presided over the trial, is also the judge that was on the jury. So you have. Oh,
he deliberates with the rest of the jurors?
Not only did he deliberate, but he guides the jury, and so this is an interesting point. You know, what you'll hear from Italians is say, well, it's better because if in America you have, let's say, a jury of 12, none of them are professional judges. They don't really know how to weigh the evidence, and therefore, you know, you never know what you're going to get. On the other hand, so the upside of this is you have professional magistrates who can help sort of sort through all of the evidence and come to a reasonable decision. The problem is, the downside is, if you have a corrupt magistrate on your jury, well, then you're looking at a situation where a magistrate might have more pull with the jury.
And the other thing is, I got to think that the judge is going to lead that jury wherever he or she wants to lead that jury. Because I've noticed in my years that the jurors look up to the judge. I mean, the judge is is the person they look for guidance from, and if the judge is going to be deliberating with the jury, so that's a major difference. And it doesn't have to be unanimous, correct?
That's correct. It did not have to be unanimous. It was a majority. Basically, they go in, they start to they deliberate, and they have to come up with sort of a decision. They have to, it's a majority rules. In this case, it's interesting because one of the jurors gave an anonymous interview with the Italian news agencies, and all the papers had it the next day, saying that they had they agreed on the evidence. They agreed on the guilty verdict. They just didn't agree on whether or not to give her life or a lesser sentence. Okay. So the disagreement in the jury was whether or not how many years, whether to give her life or the minimum, which was 21 years, not whether or not she was innocent or guilty.
All right. Now, is there, in that system, is the defendant presumed innocent and then has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, or is there a different standard of proof there? And are the presumptions different than our system?
Well, yeah, maybe the presumptions are different, but actually Italy has a lot of protections for the accused, and it's kind of a long story. You have to go back to the end of World War II to describe how the judicial system, what the framework of the judicial system is. But essentially, Italy had Mussolini, there was fascism. In 1948, they rewrote their constitution, which is the basis for most of the judicial system. And in it, they included many, many protections, habeas corpus and the right to an attorney and all of these protections to make it clear that the state couldn't necessarily prosecute. That's one of the reasons why the prosecutor and the judiciary is separate. In the U.S., you always hear the state versus X. Well, in Italy, that's not the case because it's not the state that's prosecuting. It's the judiciary, which is separate from the state. And that was done on purpose because under fascism, of course, you had the state prosecuting and prosecuting.